Okay, well, we are doing the Imitation of Christ, and we finished chapter one, or came very close to the finishing chapter one. But I'm going to touch this last little section again, the last four paragraphs. I'll just read them through because I really like the message that it gives. Um, Here he says, to be well versed in the scripture and all the sayings of philosophers will not profit you if you are without God's love and his grace. Okay, so it's important to know. I always like to come back to the most important things. When I used to give lectures, I used to always start my lectures by covering the three most important things in spiritual life, because the fact that they are the most important are is the reason that we should talk about them regularly, repeatedly, and also that we should think about it quite a bit. So he says, to be well versed in the scripture and all sayings of philosophers will not profit you if you are without God's love and without his grace. So that's always understanding that our value and our success in spiritual life is never a measure of our performance. It's a measure of our understanding and acceptance of grace. Because to the degree that we're able to accept grace, to that degree we'll have the gasoline of inspiration to rise to the occasion, to be able to renounce, to be able to keep our eyes on the beloved, and keep our hands out of vice. You know that it's in response to grace that we grow. It's in response to an unconditioned love that we become secure in that relationship with the divine, with the universe. And it's through both of those things, that grace and God's love, that allows us to quiet the mind and allows us to escape our karma without having to pay it all as such. Because we give ourselves through our faith and grace and love, we are able to give ourselves permission to forgive ourselves, to let go of the things that hold the fetters in place, the fetters of shame and guilt and all of those things. So he's just saying here, all things are vanity. All things are unreal. That's what vanity is. All things are unreal. Nothing matters except to love God and to serve him only. So there you have it. Nothing matters. Nothing. Nothing matters but to love God and to serve him only. And of course, we know that means serving God in man, God in all living things. And so it's a big, wide opportunity for us, that is the one most important thing, and the only thing of any value is this service of God in living beings and all things. The height of wisdom is to set your goal on heaven by despising the earth, despising the world. And that's just really despising egoism, the me and mine. So really we're shunning the ideas of me and mine, and trying to move into an idea of you and yours, thee and thine. And so that's how we dismantle ego, is through that process. How foolish it is to seek to put your trust in riches that will pass. How foolish to go after worldly honors and to set yourself above others. How foolish to follow the impulses of the flesh, or to covet those things which soon will cost you a heavy penalty. How foolish to wish for a long life, but not care whether it is a good life, to be concerned only with the present, with never a thought of eternity and the endless joy that awaits you. Often think of the proverb, the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. Be determined to detach your heart from the love of visible things, allowing it to center on those unseen. Yeah. So that last one is particularly Vedantic. The eyes are never going to be filled by seeing, and the ears are never going to get enough of hearing. And so understand that is the nature of sensual pleasures in the world. You will never get your fill. You'll never get enough. So detach your heart from the love of these visible things, these things that can be sensed, these things that can come in through the five senses. He says, detach your heart from them. detach it, understand that they're vanity, they're unreal. You will never get enough of them. So let go of it and allow your heart to center on those things unseen, which is the self, right? What is the one thing that you can't see? Your own face. And so to fall in love with those things unseen is to fall in love with the divine image within, that which is you, that which you cannot put in front of your senses, that which is the presence of the beloved. So I just love how straightforward those 4 paragraphs are there for us, in really setting in wonderful language, saying it's foolish. It's not that it's wrong to love the world or it's wrong to go do these things. It's just foolish. It's just a dumb thing to do, because it gets you nowhere. It's like, if you were going to go to the grocery store and you ran into the garage and pulled out the stationary bike and jumped on it and started pedaling away, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a stupid thing to do. It's not going to get you to the grocery store, right? You're just going to sit there and pedal yourself till you're tired. And that's exactly the case with these worldly pleasures. If you're looking for fulfillment, so you run out there and you grab a stationary bike, which is any of your pleasures from the world, and jump on and just pedal until you're exhausted, that's the only thing you will accomplish. You will never move your life forward through those things. You will never understand your nature. You won't find out what you are and what the reality of this experience is. So don't, and Swami Prabhupada word, don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. Let go of these things when you realize they're not real, and find the mother. Find that satisfaction within yourself, that sweet love that is yours. Chapter 2, on having a humble opinion of oneself. Knowledge is a natural desire in all people, but knowledge for its own sake is useless unless you respect God. An unlearned peasant whose contentment is the service of God is far better than the learned and the clever, whose pride in their knowledge leads them to neglect their souls while fixing their attention on the stars. Basically, we just get too big for our britches. If you love your intellect and you read the Vedanta for the philosophy, there's wonderful, wonderful head trips in there. You can spend days arguing about the finer points with all the great, sadhus and pundits out there. But what is that value? God does not exist in the head. God is not an arrangement of thoughts in the mind. God cannot be contained in the mind. So it is not in the mind, it's not in knowing things that we will find her. It's in being. It's in silent awareness of the infinite within. Through that, we come to know God. Through that, we find our well of love, so that we can draw infinitely from it to give to the world, to the people around us. So don't think that coming to these classes is going to do it for you. Don't think that your practice is going to do it for you. Don't think that any of these things are going to do it for you. One, there's nothing to be done. You just have to move your awareness from one place in your body to another, and that will finish the task. Move your awareness out of the noisy mind and into the self-realized heart, the heart that is unchanging and absolute. And in that space, then you will know, you will see and understand things that can't fit into the mind, things that can't be thought about or spoken. True self-knowledge makes you aware of your own worthlessness, and you will take no pleasure in the praises of others, right? This stuff sounds negative, but understand that when the Christians write about these things, they're writing from the perspective of being an ego in ego mind. And so when they talk about your own worthlessness, it's your own worthlessness as an ego self, as the doer, that there's no value to you. in that state. Uh, that the value that you possess is the image of God that's within you. The thing about you that is worthwhile is the fact that you're able to give love and receive love, that you're able to see beauty and create beauty, that you're able to see wisdom and to become wise. These are what make you valuable. These are the image of God within you. And so don't take pride in any of the other talents that the Lord may have given you. It's one of those things. It's, people, I often think about those people blessed with singing, and they get all egotistical about being able to sing. And it's like, why? What did you have to do with that? It's like somebody who's beautiful, who's conceited because of their beauty. It's like, why? What did you have to do with that? So you got a face that's arranged nicely. Why are you proud of it? All that should do for you is create some gratitude or some appreciation, or at least some empathy for other folks who aren't as blessed as you. So why make it a matter of me and mine, as if you did something to be handsome, or as if you did something because you naturally could, dance well, or any of those things. It's like, use some buddhi, use some intelligence, and let these things soak in. Let see it. That the thing that makes you beautiful and worthwhile in this world is your ability to love, your ability to care, your ability for wisdom, ability for beauty, manifesting God, basically. That's where your strength is. So hone in on that, and you will get all that you would be looking for in all of the other things. Being handsome, that's fine until you hit 90. Being big and buff and strong and having a great body is really great until it's all flappy and flaccid and in your 60s. It's like, choose wisely. Always imagine yourself at 80 and think about what you're going to have available to you, and use those things to find your bliss. Because if you run after things of the world, you're going to lose it all, because the world's going to go away, because your body's going to go away. And so whatever you invested in the world, that great big house you have, chances are in your old age, you won't be able to use more than one room. And so you have all of that house. So what? All of that name and fame. What? So all those people standing around waiting for you to die. So what? Use some buddhi. Always imagine yourself on your deathbed. This is a very valuable thing, and not a morbid thing at all, because it's the reality. We can make it morbid if we want to, but why? Death is as much a part of life as birth. And we celebrate birth, so we should celebrate death. It's as natural and normal as breathing. And so, I was laying in my bed in the monastery in Hollywood, and I was imagining that I was an invalid, that I was 90 years old, that I wasn't going to get out of this bed again, that this is where I was going to be, that it was a matter of time until I died. And I sat there and I just arranged all those thoughts in my mind, and I said, okay, is that all right with you? Can you live with that? Can right now, imagining all of that to be true, have you found the bliss within that you're going to need to die with? Have you found the confidence in the presence that is going to make death a beautiful thing for you? And so it's quite wonderful, because that's where you're going to have to pull together everything that you have and jump, make that leap into the arms of the mother, out of the body. And so spend time thinking about that. And it doesn't have to be in bed thinking you're going to die. It can be just in a quiet room. Just stop for a moment and say, suppose I'm never going to get anything else. All of my resources and ability to get anything else is gone. Can I be content right now? Can I find some bliss right now, generated from nothing but my own being, from my own self? And if not, that's why we practice. That's what practice is. That's what our quest for realization is to come to that state where without anything we can find bliss, we can find contentment, you know. And I saw that in the eyes of Swami Asitananda. He used to be out at the Lima retreat. He was kind of a cantankerous Swami for many years, but then he really mellowed when he got older. And in his last days, when he couldn't get out, he sat in one easy chair. He couldn't get out of that easy chair. So he sat there 24/7. He slept in it, sat in it, and then repeated every day. But he would sit alone in that back room in the monastery there in the barnastery, because the monastery was in a barn in Olima. And so he would sit in the barnastery in his room there in the back. And I would walk by and check in through a crack in his door just to make sure he was all right every now and then when I was out there for karma yoga. And I always saw him just sitting in that big armchair, unable to move, no radio, no television, nothing in the room, just him in the silence, sitting there looking up at the ceiling. And he always had this faraway look on his face and this beautiful look of love in his eyes. He was completely just gone, just sitting there with the Divine Mother in his old age. And so this is why we practice. This is why we're doing this work.
And
so
Swami,
that, yes, sir.
Same was with Swami Manishanandaji. When I saw his pic in the group chat, he was looking like a newborn baby just came out into the world with his eyes, and so bright. His face was just glowing, actually. So such a peaceful death. So yeah,
that's the way it should be. Death is beautiful. Death is the fulfillment of a promise that we're not stuck in this body forever, that we're not going to be limited, we're not going to be hungry, we're not going to be alone and isolated forever. That's what death is. Death is the fulfillment of the promise of Mother coming and taking us to our real nature, setting us free from this ignorance. So true self-knowledge, knowledge of the self, of the fact that you are God residing in a body using an alias. So you are God, you are the Divine Mother living in your body using an alias. True self-knowledge makes you aware of the worthlessness of your ego, your own worthlessness, and will make you take no pleasure in the praises of others, right? Because these are all changing things. People will praise you and the next day they'll curse you. There's nothing in it. You are responsible to yourself. And if you love yourself and you are doing your best, praise or blame make no difference to you. The only thing that matters to you, are you doing what is necessary to set yourself free? If your knowledge encompasses the universe and the love of God is not in you, what good will it do you in God's sight? He will judge you according to your actions, right? You'll judge you according to your actions. This is what happens, is that you are that, and it's the mind that holds our karma. And so it's the mind that will make you pure, the mind that will make you impure. It's your actions that color your mind. Whatever you expose your mind to, that's the color it takes. And so be careful. You can at least be aware, if not careful, at least be aware of what you put into your mind every day. Because your body is the temple, right? It's the temple of God. The one of the oldest scriptures in the world. It's the first thing they say in there. The body is the temple of the Spirit of God. It's your soul. It's the temple of the Atman. And what is your worship? How do you worship with the body? Everything that you put into the body is what you are putting on the offering fire, the Duni fire of the heart. Everything that you offer under that fire, everything that you eat. So if you eat good and healthy food, the reward for that is a good and healthy body. If you listen to wholesome music and positive thinking things, then you will get that. You'll get the benefit of that. If you're listening to things that are unhelpful, if you're watching or looking at things that are unhelpful, That's what you'll get, unhelpful things, and your struggles will become worse, and your bliss will be diluted. It will be, you won't be able to find it or see it. An overwhelming desire for knowledge brings many distractions and much delusion. This is worldly knowledge. You know, if you just want to be smart. Something I gave up worrying about long ago. He says, an overwhelming desire for knowledge brings many distractions and much delusion. Many like to be considered learned and to be praised for their wisdom. How much knowledge there is which adds nothing to the good of the soul. To spend yourself on worldly pursuits which do nothing to further your eternal salvation is unwise. Right? And so this is why we've got karma yoga, so that we have a way of working in the world that's not unwise. If you're accumulating for me and mine, it's horribly unwise. Horribly unwise. Because what? You're going to leave it behind. The body can only, eat so much. The senses can only enjoy so much. And if you just keep stacking it up in the world, very unwise. If you are not able to find joy in an empty, quiet room, then you've got work to do. You've got work to do, because the potential of life, the truth of life is that in an empty, barren room, you have enough in your presence to experience samadhi, to experience ecstasy. If you can't be at least content in the moment, meaning not restless, not looking around bored, oh my God, somebody entertain me. Somebody take my mind off of my loneliness. If you can't sit in a room with nothing and find your contented bliss inside, then work. You've got work to do for your practice, because God is everywhere present and always perfect.
Hey, Swami, I got a question.
Yeah.
So this knowledge that we're saying, is it like education knowledge as far as like reading books or going to universities and learning? Is that the knowledge we're talking about?
It's all relational knowledge that fits in the mind. And he's not saying that none of us should study. That's not what he's saying. But you should not have an inordinate love for it. You should not be looking for your own fulfillment through it. If you're going to use it to serve, or you're going to use that knowledge to do something beautiful as worship, wonderful, no problems. Get that degree. As a householder, you're responsible for making money. If you learn to make some more money because you wanted to be able to support more good things for going on in the world, all of that's fine. But don't really, all he's saying here is what he says over and over again. Don't look for anything outside of yourself to bring you happiness or contentment. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. Look at all the billionaires in the world today. They've got more money than they can spend in their life, and yet they're all working for more. They're working harder, working harder than most of us, and still never getting enough. And so this is the nature of the world. This is the nature of these things. And this is what our discernment will teach us. And through that discernment, we can let go. We can find our freedom. Remember, that's our part as of this morning from the Advaita Vedanta class. Our part is to subdue our attachments, and the rest will be done for us.
Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure as far as the job as our householder, but you cleared it up. So thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. So that's it. Just don't love knowledge for the sake of knowledge,
But there are lots of people, Swami, who love what they, in the sense of they're not conscious of serving anybody or anything. But for example, a mathematician might actually experience beauty in the world through math, and or something like that, or a musician with music. And it's not, it may not be a spirit of service. It may not be a spirit of love. It's just enjoyment of what they are good at. So what is that? how
It's
does
the
that?
same thing. It's the same thing. I mean, it's knowing things in and of themselves is meaningless. It's not helpful to anything. If you're looking for it in order to acquire something like name and fame or confidence or love of yourself or contentment, you won't be able to find it there. And that's what he's saying. Don't go after these things. Don't look outside of yourself for anything to take care of your insecurity, your sense of personal value, your contentment in life, you're feeling like a whole person, you're feeling good about yourself. All of that should come through grace and the presence of the divine within you. All of that comes of its own accord. It's part of you. It's what you are. If you look outside of yourself for your joy, for your contentment, for your happiness, you will always be a slave. That's the best that you can be. Because if you hold something outside of yourself, you're going to have to go and get it somehow. And your life will be about acquiring it. It's like with sex, going out to the clubs, hooking up with folks. It's like the more you do that, the more your life becomes about that. You start going to the gym, and you think, oh, now I can, have as many people as I want. But the problem is, when you start improving yourself, you're going to start demanding partners who improve themselves. So you always keep the scarcity level, and it's always going to be just out of your reach, and you're never going to get what you want to have. It's the lie of the material, the lie of Maya. And so lay all of those things aside through discernment and touch the one thing that is eternal, the one thing that does give contentment in an empty room. And that is finding the shrine of the heart, finding the presence of God in your being. And that will take you all the way to samadhi. It is useless to spend much time in talking. Only a holy life and a good conscience will ease your mind and satisfy your soul, enabling you to face God with confidence, right? Because that facing God with confidence is really facing your own self with confidence, where you know your own integrity, you know your own sincerity, you know your own earnestness. And that has led you to an understanding of grace, to an understanding of an unconditioned love. And all of those things together is what brings you home. It's what allows you to see. Remember, the more you know, the more severely you will be judged. Yeah, I don't know that you need to know that, but it's there. The more ability that you have, the more responsibility Mother will give you. So if you have just a small amount of money and you're faithful with it, you give 2 cents to your guru, and you give 2 cents to the homeless guy down the street, and then the fact that you only make $10 a week is no problem. You're being faithful with it. And if you're being faithful with it, Mother will say, hey, look, here's a way that we can get more out into the world, more love. And so she'll put you in charge of something, or give you more money to give with. So he or she who is faithful in little will be faithful in much. So whatever you have, if you right now don't give any money in charity, it's useless to say, oh, when I make my first million, then I'm going to give my money to charity. No, you won't. You'll give the same amount in charity percentage-wise then that you give now. It's the nature of money. It's like I learned that in going through that phase of, when I was in college, I was so poor. I think I was making $114 a month at that time with my work program, and I could live, but that was it. I could live, but there was nothing else there. And I remember thinking, oh gosh, I can't wait, when I got my first professional job and I brought home that first paycheck, $5,000, I was like, oh my God, I've never had this much money. How am I going to possibly spend all of that money? That's how I felt. But I tell you, within 2 years, that wasn't enough money anymore. It's like I had moved into a bigger apartment. I'd gotten a bigger television. I'd gotten a bigger stereo. I'd gotten a nicer vehicle, all of those things. And I began spending all the money that I made. And I noticed and I saw, just because I was fortunate to have eyes to discern even before I knew what it was about. And when I laid in my bed that night, remember that story I told where I came home from the bars one night, and I just sat on my bed and I was depressed. And I just thought to myself, I was like, I've done everything. I graduated from college. I got the degree everybody told me I should have to get. I've set myself up. I've got my house. I've got my car. I've got great friends. I got the money I want to go out to the clubs. I can do everything. How am I not happy? And I remember sitting there and looking around my apartment and realizing that all I had done was make everything bigger. That I had nothing more now than I had when I was in college. In college, I was in one room off of a garage in Daly City. I had a little tiny, 13-inch black and white television. I had a little jam box. I had a futon that I had to pull off of the couch and put it on the floor every night to sleep. I had a little scooter out there to get to classes for. And I was looking around my room as a professional. I was like, look, my 13-inch television is now a 37-inch Sony Trinitron. My little jam box is now this huge MB Court, system. My little futon that I pulled off the couch to sleep on the floor is now a queen size bed. My scooter is now a car. My one room is now a house. My view of the back garden is now the view of downtown. But in all of that, I came home depressed. And I thought to myself, if I keep going on this trajectory, everything's just going to get even bigger. I'll move into a bigger house. I'll get even a bigger television, even though at that point, a bigger television wasn't even available. But now I see I could have had a 95-inch television on my wall, It's like, you see, and so if you don't stop at periods in your life and take a serious look where you're going, what have you accomplished? What have you done? If you don't do that, you're going to do it at the end, because you'll be laying in your bed there, unable to move, your flabby, skinny body rotting out from underneath you, thinking, oh God, what have I done with my life? Laying there thinking that. And then it's too late. So periodically, it's really good. Life, if you pay attention, will give you those moments where you just look around and think, what am I doing? But then you can't just do it and just say, oh, well, that's the way it is. You have to give yourself permission to change. If something's not giving what you want or taking you forward, abandon it. Walk away from it. Do what's right. Do what will be fulfilling. I did it several times, and not that you should be like me in that, but I'm grateful because of where I ended up. I ended up in a monastery of all places, which not a single person who knew me before the monastery would ever have made me a candidate for it. But there it is. I remember that night when I sat there on my bed and I came to that realization that if I keep going this way, I'm just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger things, and I'm still going to be the same in the midst of it. And so I told myself, I said a very California thing to myself. I said, Vance, I hereby give you permission to do anything that you think that will make you happy. Anything. And so 2 weeks later, I had sold everything, quit my job, and bought a plane ticket to Prague to become an expatriate writer. Because I still wasn't thinking spiritual at all. I didn't know anything about it, really. So I didn't go that direction. But in getting out there and traveling around the world for several months, that's when I started learning, started understanding things a little bit more. One of the big ones, I was sitting on a tropical island, Rarotonga, in the middle of the South Pacific, and sitting at this table on the back of this lodge that I was staying at. And I was sitting there and I was realizing, I was like, wow, there's only 10,000 people on this island, and they've never been off this island because it's a $1,500 plane ticket to get off this island. And there's not a $1,500 economy on this island for anybody to afford getting off. And as I was contemplating that, I realized, I was like, well, if I'm going to assume that life has a purpose and that fulfilling that purpose is our goal in life, then I'm going to have to assume that the people that live on this island and can't get off of this island have access to the same purpose in life and the same ability to fulfill it. Otherwise, it couldn't be like this. Otherwise, there's nothing. And I wasn't willing to make that statement. But I looked at it and I saw, here I am running around the world for something that I probably carry with me. And that's when my direction first started to go inward. I didn't know what that meant at all, but I started to think, okay, it's not outside of me where I'm going to find this contentment. And so at that point, I went back to San Francisco and got my job back again and kept the search going. But at that point, what I decided to do, just for fun, I decided to create my own religion. I thought, okay, well, maybe religion is the answer, but I certainly am not going to take anybody else's. I'm going to create my own. And so I learned how to read tarot cards from a.
How old were you, Swami? How old were you at the time? How old were you?
27, 28, 29 in there. So I went and learned tarot card reading from a gypsy in Prague. I learned how to read runes from a friend in the British Isles. So I started doing. I had some ideas of meditation, also, which I won't go into all my details. But I was a weirdo. If you'd come over to my house at that time, I lived in an empty house. When I came back from my traveling around the world, I lived in a flat with 5 rooms in it, and only 2 rooms had anything. Only had any furniture in it. The other ones were empty because I loved the potential of that. I loved a room. An empty room can be anything. A furnished room is what it is, and so I loved my empty house. And on my empty walls in crayon, I had drawn all of these rune scripts, which were blessings, written in old Druid. And so if you had come to visit me at that point, you would have walked into my house, you would have seen just an empty house with these big rune script, blessings written on the wall in crayon, a big driftwood chair where I did my meditation, a little tea table in front of the chair that had my abalone shell that I didn't have my smudge stick in for clearing the negative energy out of the room. I had my bell there. I had my black piece of velvet for casting my runes that I had made out of an oak branch that had been struck by lightning. I had all the pieces. I had my tarot deck sitting out there wrapped in this silk container. And so I'd go in there in the mornings and do my practice, which was to lay out a tarot reading for myself for the day, cast the runes for the day, and then sit in my big driftwood chair and do some meditation. Anyway, hopefully Mother will save you from the humiliation of having to go through that path. But it is good for you to take time to sit down and look at your life. Is it working? Are you growing in love? Vivekananda said, ask yourself 2 questions. Am I unselfish? Am I loving? Those 2 things are the most important thing. And you can spend a whole life wandering this world in exhaustion, trying to find it and wondering why you can't be happy. But those 2 things, so simple, so available, and it will save you lots and lots and lots of trouble to realize that. Ask yourself, am I loving? And am I unselfish? And if you can't answer yes to the degree that you want to, then think of how you can change that. And do it. Find the courage, give yourself permission through grace to make the changes. no matter how hard they are. It's this world lies to us all the time. It's like when I sat there on that bed that night and I said, I give you permission to do whatever you want. When it occurred to me that I was going to quit everything because none of it had taken me in the direction I wanted to go, that was a terrifying thing, to sit there and think about quitting my job, getting rid of my house, selling all my belongings. That was a very difficult thing to do. But I was like, okay, I gave myself permission. I'm going to do what's necessary, and sold all of it. And so that was a scary thing. But as soon as it was done, it was wonderful. I felt so free. I felt so light. I could go anywhere in the world and do anything that I wanted. I had no one to answer to. And what an amazing feeling that was, and to go through. And the same when I joined the monastery. When Swami told me I had to empty all my bank accounts, I had to cut up all my credit cards, I had to get rid of my cell phone, I wouldn't be able to go home anymore. That was terrifying things to do. But I tell you, the next morning after my first night in the monastery, when I woke up and went to the shrine for the first time to do my practice, oh my God, what an exhilaration. What an exhilaration that was. What a feeling. And so I heavily encourage you, be bold, live with courage, do things that are crazy. Mother loves crazy people. Look at the monks. They're all nuts. Not me, of course, but I mean all the other monks. They're all nuts.
Quite a journey for me. Quite a journey. And I was thinking I was weird too when I think that, yes, I want my home to be empty. My wife doesn't like that idea though. But I like to keep my home empty. I don't want anything in the home. I don't know why am I thinking like that, but I realize I'm not the only one. I think many people think like that who are in this path, who don't want to, put things or put objects wherever there's space. We want to keep it empty, open. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Good to know that.
No, it's a wonderful thing to do. Yes, but remember, your wife is part of you. So you have to compromise.
Yep.
So you can have your man cave in the garage, which has nothing in it. All right. Why have an exalted opinion of yourself when you know there are many, even in your own field, whose knowledge surpasses yours? If you want to learn anything worthwhile, seek rather to be unknown and to be thought of as nothing. Right? Be one of those people that does things in the background without having to announce it every time. I remember I used to have a roommate. He would do his chores around the house and he would make a big announcement. Oh, I washed the dishes today. Oh, I took out the trash today. Oh, I cleaned the fridge today. Not everything was always announced. And how much nicer, just be the person that if something needs to be done, you do it. You don't say anything about it. You don't announce it to anyone. You don't wait until someone shows up so you can do it in front of them. Just, you are the king of your kingdom, right? And find joy in running your life in a holy and proper way. The fulfillment will come through that. The joy will come through that. So there's nothing in it that involves anyone else. It's you and the beloved. That's it. Just you and the beloved in this world. And the truth of that is that there's just you, just the beloved in the world. But for the time being, there's you and the beloved. And so enjoy the beloved. Enjoy him in everything. Enjoy him everywhere. Be you, spread your kindness, serve him everywhere. Sit down. One of the nice memories I have is, well, anyway, I won't go into that one. That's me announcing my own stuff. But yeah, but take stock of your life and see that you're living according to principles that are actually bringing joy to your inner self, that are something you don't have to run and get in order to be happy. This is the thing. This is life. And if you haven't or aren't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all, because in this moment you're free and you can do what's right now. You can do what's wise now. And because of grace and because of this unconditioned love that we're exposed to, that will be enough. That will be enough. Because that's how it's going to be for all of us. We're going to spend an awful long time trying lots of different things. And at some point, through the grace of God, we're going to sit down and Mother's going to hit the switch. And we'll be like, oh, aha. And then, what do they say? Om Ram, bingo, finished. So, nothing is so beneficial as a true knowledge of ourselves, which produces wholesome self-contempt toward ego self, a distaste for egoism. Always think kindly of others. So he's telling you of these are the things right here. These are the important things. Always think kindly of others while holding yourself as nothing. This is true wisdom and leads to perfection, right? If you think of yourself as something, then you're going to expect to be treated in certain ways. You're going to expect certain amounts of gratitude to be shown to you for your kindnesses. You're going to want rewards for the extra little things you did in the kitchen. It's like, so if you have thoughts of yourself as something, it's going to really hamper your ability to enjoy service, right? Because it's going to tie expectations into everything that you do. So I think of nothing of yourself. Put yourself in a position of fondly thinking of others in the world, right? And just loving, just loving in the moment. Loving in the moment. And if there's no one in the room with you, then love. Just sit in the presence of God's love and just bathe in that light. Bathe in that light. Fill the battery. So always think kindly of others while holding yourself as nothing. This is true wisdom and leads to perfection. If you see another commit a grievous sin or whose faults are flagrant, do not regard yourself as better, for you do not know what you would do if similarly tempted. You are in good disposition now, but you do not know how long you will persevere in it. Always keep in mind that all are frail, but none so frail as yourself. Right? So it's just that always, the way that I do this is what we talked about with Holy Mother, where she says, do not find fault in others, see your own faults. So whenever I do notice a fault in others, I immediately use that. Immediately. I don't make any opinion about them. I immediately use that situation and that information to search out my heart, to search out my own mind. Am I guilty of what I'm angry at them for? I think the most of the time I really realized this, the biggest, was standing in line. I tell this story. I'm standing in line for pizza, for lunch at the table in the kitchen of the buffet line. There's 4 pieces of pizza and I'm 5th in line, and so of course everybody in front of me is selfish because they're all taking the last piece of pizza and not letting me have it. But you see, I realized at that point, I was like, well, gosh, it's my own selfishness that's making me notice that they're taking pizza. If I was unselfish, I would be happy that they're getting pieces of pizza, And so I realized that it is true. You will only see the faults in others that you have in yourself. And I know somebody disagreed with that the other day, but it is a stone written truth. If you can see it in someone else, it exists in you. And if you feel strongly about it in someone else, then it probably exists in a rather notable quantity within you. Which is the reason that we don't like it, because even in our own nature, we don't like the things that are egoistic in ourselves if we're aware of them, which is the reason that we stay unaware because we don't want to see those things. So, this self-reflection, this becoming aware within of the mind is all very important. All right. And these things are all changing. That's what he's saying here at the end when he says, you might be in a good position right now. You might be spiritually strong right now. You might be spiritually growing. But he says this world is constantly changing. You don't know when your temptation that you're going to fall to might come. So don't get cocky. Don't start thinking something. This world is the world of change. Things are shifting and moving all the time. And you should not take comfort in conditions, no matter how good they seem, because they are all temporary. All of them. So don't do it. Oh my goodness, it's already 7:57. All right. We're going to stop there at chapter 3. So